I call this meeting of the Northeast Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. The board will now adjourn into executive session pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act. Texas Government Code, Section 551.071, private consultation with the board's attorney. 551.072, discussing purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property. 551.074, to discuss personnel or to hear complaints against personnel. And the time is 5:30. The board will now reconvene into open session. The time is 6:37. On behalf of the trustees, I would like to welcome you to this evening's meeting of the Northeast Independent School Board. This is a business meeting of the board held in public. We appreciate your attendance and request your respectful attention. We welcome your comments during the Matters from the Floor section of the agenda. If you signed up to address a specific action agenda item, you will be called at that time. Finally, I would like to remind you that it is the mission of Northeast to challenge and encourage each student to achieve and demonstrate academic excellence, technical skills, and responsible citizenship. Item 5, Invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. A, Castle Hills Elementary, Miss Asham.
Good evening, Madam President, board members, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. It is my pleasure to represent Castle Hills Elementary. We have a unique year-round schedule. We're 9 weeks on and 2 weeks off. I highly recommend that you join us on that schedule. We are also on the way to becoming an arts integration school. I'm very excited about that. But I'm even more thrilled to have an awesome, very, very involved Castle Hills family with me tonight. I'd like to introduce them. Lillian Daines and Matthew Daines, would you please stand? They have a lot in common. They're both fifth graders. They're both in Cub Scout Pack 537. They're both high-achieving students and very involved in our school and have been there since kindergarten. And their brother Luke, please stand, Luke. He also came through Castle Hills, and he is now enjoying data magnet program at Ed White School. So, and also with them are their parents. Would you please stand, Nick and Beth Daines? Beth has been on the PTA board for 4 years and was the PTA president for 2. She also substitutes in our school often, and we love having her here. So welcome to all of you, and I'd like to bring Lillian up to the podium to lead the invocation.
Begin with the end in mind. Habit 2 by Mia M. Habit number 2 is one of a kind. It's called Begin with the End in Mind. If it will be, it's up to you to put into plan habit number 2. Can you see yourself from the end? The finish line is just around the bend. What good are we if we don't have a plan? One step at a time, you know you can. Set goals for the year, month, or day. Don't worry what people say. Do what you need to and be the best you. Writing goals down is what you should do. It's easier than you might think. Just grab your pen and use that ink. To write your goals and your dreams, it's much more simple than it seems. Lift up your eyes and look ahead. Stretch out your arms and hop out of bed. Because there is no better time than today, I am starting habit 2 right away.
Okay, and Matthew will lead us in the pledges.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, and one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please join me in the pledge of the Texas state flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, indivisible. You may be seated.
Lillian and Matthew, would you please come forward because Mrs. Huey has a certificate for you? You both did an awesome job. Thank you all for being here, and I'm sure because it's a school night that you would like to go home. And do you have homework already? Yes? Yeah. Thank you again for being here. We really appreciate it. Item 6, matters from executive session. A, personnel including but not limited to administrative appointments pursuant to Government Code Section 551.074. 1, possible action regarding routine personnel including but not limited to administrative appointments. Do I have a motion to approve as discussed in executive session?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Byer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. We have a lot of introductions on item 2, but I would like to start first. Is Miss Jensen in the room? Will you please stand up? I just want to congratulate you and thank you for an awesome August leadership. You think you're in trouble, right? But I know the amount of work that you put into it, and Joe and Justin also, thank you for your help, but I think it was all Jane, right? So thank you again. And is Miss Shore in the room?
She's right there.
Thank you for an awesome production at the very beginning. Do we have any of our performers in the room? If so, yeah. Yeah. Thank y'all so much for agreeing to participate in that production. It was amazing. It was a great kickoff to August leadership, and it was so fun, and it was fun to see you all. So I just want to thank you for participating in that. Thank you, Julie. Amazing job for that. And thank you for letting me have that little moment. It's your turn now. Dr. Micah.
Madam President,
Yes.
you can have that moment anytime you
Thank you.
choose. So I am very pleased to introduce to the Board of Trustees tonight the principal of Lee High School, David Crow. David, where are you? All right. So David entered education to make a difference in kids' lives. He sought school administration to make a bigger impact on a campus versus the individual classroom and coaching role. As the principal of Lee High School, he will strive to multiply his passion and vision through the faculty and staff that he works with each day. He joined the Northeast family in 2000. Prior to being named the principal at Lee High School, he was the principal at Teheda Middle School. Mr. Crow received a bachelor's degree in biology in 1994 from Hardin-Simmons University. He earned a master's degree in educational leadership in 2004 from the University of Texas at San Antonio. Mr. Crow has 24 years in education. He is excited to be back in the Lee community after 10 years of working at other NEISD schools. Lee is a very diverse campus with students who come from all walks of life, a true microcosm of the world. He firmly believes he and his staff will do great things for kids as they work together this school year and for many more in the future. Congratulations, David. Don't sit down. Did you bring anybody with you tonight, David, that you would like to introduce?
I did. My wife Cynthia, my oldest son John David, and my youngest son Michael.
All right. David, if you would come to the front, we're going to take a quick picture, all right? So next is the new principal for Nimitz Middle School, Miss Jennifer Cooper. So Jennifer is joining the Northeast family as the principal at Nimitz Middle School. She believes that the school is a reflection of the community. It is her responsibility to work together to make each a better place where students and adults alike are successful. No matter where you come from, you will find an equal partner committed to your child's success. Before joining Northeast Independent School District, she was an assistant principal at San Marcos Consolidated ISD. Ms. Cooper received a bachelor's degree in English and Education in 2007 from the University of Texas at San Antonio and earned a master's degree in Educational Administration in 2011 from Lamar University. Ms. Cooper has 12 years in education. More than anything, she wants students to belong. As a member of the Nimitz STEM family, she is committed to students feeling safe, valued, and at the heart of everything they do. Congratulations, Jennifer. Do you have anyone joining you this evening?
I do. I have my husband, Gary Cooper. So he's and this is my youngest son, Jared. He is a sophomore in college. And this is my oldest son, Jacob. He is a senior at TLU.
All right. The new principal of Tejeda Middle School is Martha Reyes. Martha is the product of teachers who believed she could accomplish any goal she set for herself. She believes that it is very important for students to connect with Tejeda and have a sense of pride in being a Tejeda Timberwolf. She wants our students to be the best representation of themselves, whether it is in the classroom, campus, or in the community. Ms. Reyes joined the Northeast family in 2009. Prior to being named the principal at Tejeda Middle School, she was an assistant principal at MacArthur High School. Ms. Reyes received a bachelor's degree in political and behavioral sciences in 1998 from the University of Texas Pan American. She earned a master's degree in public administration in 2004 from the University of Texas at San Antonio. Ms. Reyes has 21 years in education. She looks forward to meeting all families as they provide every student the opportunity to reach their highest potential. Ms. Reyes thanks parents for choosing Northeast Independent School District, and even greater thanks for choosing Tejeda Middle School. Congratulations, Martha. I think you have somebody here with you as well.
I do. My husband, William Hawkins.
The new principal of Northern Hills is Marissa Wolfsberg. Marissa is joining the Northeast family as the principal for Northern Hills Elementary School. Before joining Northeast, she was the principal at Indian Springs Elementary School in the Comal Independent School District. She wants our students at Northern Hills to experience the positive feeling of taking risks, and she wants them to truly understand the feeling of success and growth. Ms. Wolfsburg received a bachelor's degree in early childhood and elementary in 1988 from the University of Texas at San Antonio. She earned a master's degree in education in 1992 from the University of Texas at San Antonio. Ms. Wolfsburg has 30 years in education. Her message to the community of Northern Hills Elementary School is, I'm here for you, not only as the principal of this school, but also as your support system. We are a team and we are in this together. The needs and safety of our children are first and foremost. Congratulations, Marissa. And you have joining with you this evening?
I have my husband, Cal Wolfsburg. Principal of Northern Hills, Jennifer.
You right.
I know, I need that. All right, the new principal of Oak Grove Elementary is Tauline Brown. Bloom. Dr. Newman's laughing because I never get it right even though it's sitting right in front of me. Tauline Bloom wants to inspire every student to think, learn, and be successful. They will know that Oak Grove Elementary School cares about them. Miss Bloom is joining the Northeast family as the principal for Oak Grove Elementary School and has 20 years in education. Before joining Northeast ISD, she was the principal at Carroll Bell Elementary School in Harlandale. Miss Bloom received a bachelor's degree in business administration in 1996 from the University of Texas at San Antonio. She earned a master's degree in educational leadership in 2003 from the University of Texas at San Antonio. She is committed to promoting a safe, meaningful, and engaging educational experience for all students. She believes that all students have unique strengths and potential, and that it is our job as educators to tap into these strengths. It is her belief that every student deserves a quality education, and that best occurs when schools, families, and community work together to address and meet the social, emotional, and academic needs of each student. Welcome, Tauline. I'll skip the Bloom part. Do you have anybody joining you this evening?
My husband, Daryl.
All right. All right. Even though my Apple Watch is now mad at me that I didn't get those steps in. The new principal of Stone Oak Elementary School, Miss Ann Carr. There she is. Ann joined the Northeast family in 2000. Prior to being named the principal at Stone Oak Elementary School, she was the assistant principal at Castle Hills Elementary School. Ms. Carr considers it an honor to serve in education and wants to be the one who inspires and motivates others to become successful, lifelong learners. She is committed to ensuring every student will feel important, loved, and safe, and she believes when these needs are met, learning comes naturally. Ms. Carr received a bachelor's degree in interdisciplinary studies in 2000 from the University of Texas at San Antonio. She earned a master's degree in educational leadership and policy studies in 2012 from the University of Texas at San Antonio. Ms. Carr has 18 years in education. She promises to treat your child as if they were her own and is honored, excited, and humbled to be the principal of Stone Oak Elementary School. Congratulations, Ann. Do you have some folks joining you this evening? All right. The new principal for Wetmore Elementary School, Miss Catherine Leach. Boy, I'm struggling with names. Catherine joined the Northeast family in 2012. To her, there is no other profession in the world better than being an educational administrator, and she thrives on opportunities to lead others to greatness. Prior to being named the principal at Wetmore Elementary School, she was the assistant principal at Hardy Oak Elementary. The one thing she wants our students to experience is that they are loved and appreciated while learning as much as they can. She believes when students feel cared for, they take risks, learn more, and strive to be the best they can be. Ms. Leach received a bachelor's degree in interdisciplinary studies in 2002 from Texas State University. She earned a master's degree in elementary education in 2003 from Texas State University and earned a second master's degree in school administration in 2009 from Concordia University. It takes a village to raise a child, and she is honored to be a part of your child's village. That's okay, that village is doing pretty well. Miss Leach has 17 years in education. Congratulations. Oh, yeah. That's right. Look, I think there's somebody that wants to be introduced.
Oh, yeah, it's first time. This is my mom, Sandy Rogers, who retired from Thousand Oaks Elementary.
All right.
And then the loves of my life, Craig, Colson, and Christian.
Catherine, your mom was my village. She was my children's third grade teacher. It's full circle. Yep.
So cute.
Amazing teacher right here. Oh my
What was he doing? What was he doing?
All right. I don't know that I can follow that show. Golly. The new assistant principal at Churchill High School, Hector Perales. There he is. Previously, he was an assistant principal at Lopez Middle School. Mr. Perales received a bachelor's degree in history in 1997 from the University of Texas at San Antonio. He earned a master's degree in education in 2006 from Schreiner University. Mr. Perales has 19 years in education. Hector Perales joined the Northeast family in 2000. He is committed to building strong relationships with the students, faculty, staff, parents, and community. He believes if all of us work together, our success will not only be evident in the classrooms and hallways of Churchill, it will be seen in the homes, neighborhoods, businesses, and throughout our community. Congratulations, Hector. Do you have anybody here tonight, Hector, with you? No. No? Oh! Todd, are you going to teach him how to cheerlead? Okay, we're relying on, we're going to wait. We'll test him out later. Yeah, come on, Hector. Yeah, he's sitting down. He doesn't want to. Yeah, come on, Mr. Bloomer. You can come take a picture with us.
Give me his mom.
Let me see your WC.
Oh, I love it. All right.
The new assistant principal of Reagan High School, Philip Steinert.
Wait, you missed.
I'll go back and get it. Philip joined the Northeast family in 2014. In his opinion, there are fewer rewards in life than helping grow someone into their best versions of themselves. He takes great joy in developing students and wants them to experience a genuine relationship with educators while feeling safe at all times. Prior to being named an assistant principal at Reagan High School, he was a teacher at Reagan High School. He has been a Reagan Rattler since 2014 and has a strong belief in being the example you expect of others. Mr. Steinert received a bachelor's degree in kinesiology in 2013 from the University of Texas at San Antonio. He earned a master's degree in administration in 2018 from Lamar University. Mr. Steinert has 5 years in education. Congratulations, Philip. Do you have anybody joining you this evening?
Yes, sir. My wife, Lauren Baker, my mother-in-law, Ann Baker, and my wonderful principal, Brenda Shelton.
All right. So, come on, Brenda Shelton. Come on up. You're going to be in the picture, too. She's like, fragile. The new assistant principal at the Northeast Alternative Center, Adam Hernandez. I got to let the board drink in the baby real quick, Adam. They're all like, oh, it's a baby. Adam wants the community to know the school motto. We teach students to make good choices. Northeast ISD wants our students to be productive citizens as they are part of our community and will work hard to ensure that happens. Mr. Hernandez has 21 years in education. Mr. Hernandez joined the Northeast family in 2007. Prior to being named an assistant principal at the Northeast Alternative Center, he was a teacher at the Alternative High School. Mr. Hernandez received a bachelor's degree in mathematics in 1997 from Southwest Texas State University. He earned a master's degree in statistics in 2004 from the University of Texas at San Antonio. He wants each student to experience the feeling of relief on their first day at the Northeast Alternative Center and will strive to make students feel at ease to know that they are in a safe environment where they can focus on their academics. Congratulations, Adam. So we know you brought a baby. Who else did you bring?
I brought my wife, Julie, my daughter, Adeline, who wasted no time on spitting up on me. My daughter, Isabel, my niece, Casey, and my sister-in-law, Katie.
All right. All right, the new Director of Records and Compliance for Human Resources, Jason Piracello. Was I close? Okay, he says I was pretty close. Jason is thrilled to join the Northeast Independent School District as the Director of Records and Compliance in the Human Resources Department and hopes to serve as a valuable resource for all employees. Before joining the Northeast Independent School District, he was the Director of Policies and Public Information at San Antonio ISD. Beginning as a 19-year-old human resources intern in college, little did he know that working in human resources would become his life's work and passion. He is driven by the relationships and connections he has made and continues to make with the people he serves and who have helped him along the way. Mr. Piracello. Well, thank you. Mr. Piracello received a bachelor's degree in psychology in 2000 from the University of Austin and earned a doctorate degree in law in 2006 from the University of Texas School of Law. Mr. Piracello has 9 years in education. Congratulations, Jason. Jason, did you bring anybody? All-
I do have a family, but they're not here. I have my HR family here, my new HR family here, Shyla, Angela, so, yeah.
Come on up, Jason. All right. Our new Director of Testing, Beverly Leberhurst. All right. Beverly joined the Northeast family in 1994. Growing up, she had awesome teachers and coaches who encouraged her to always do her best. She credits great role models and a large family of educators that helped her with her career path. Prior to being named Director of Testing Services, she was the Testing Analyst 1. She believes to lead others, it takes a proactive approach, and that building strong professional relationships with others instills trust and, most importantly, advocacy for our campuses. Beverly received a bachelor's degree in journalism in 1988 from Southwest Texas State University. She earned a master's degree in counseling in 2001 from the University of Texas at San Antonio. She considers it a privilege to assist all Northeast campuses and is committed to providing the best support and customer service to all. Beverly has 27 years in education. Congratulations, Beverly. Do you have anyone joining you?
I do. I have my son Patrick, who is a sophomore at UTSA.
All right.
My daughter Abby is going to be a junior at Antonian. And I'm surprised tonight my lifelong friend, your
Okay, big smiles. 1, 2, and 3. And then 1, 2, and 3. There we go. Thank you.
And our new program director of music, Philip Flynn. Philip joined the Northeast Independent School District in 2007. Prior to being named program director of music for fine arts, he was the band director at Madison High School. Growing up, he loved school and always knew he wanted to be an educator and give students the same great experiences he had in classrooms and music programs. He feels the camaraderie and collaboration educators experience is special and contributes to a fun and positive work environment. Mr. Flynn received a bachelor's degree in music with concentration in tuba in 2007. I hope you brought it tonight. From Texas Tech University, and earned a master's degree in music education in 2010 from Texas Tech University. He wants the parents and students to know he will always strive to provide them world-class music programs, state-of-the-art facilities, and endless support. He also wants everyone who ever hears about Northeast ISD to know that our music programs are among the best in the country. Mr. Flynn has 11 years of in education. Congratulations, Philip. And I see you have your wife and your children tonight. You want to introduce them?
Sure. Yes, my wife, Shelley, is the dance director at Madison High School. Our third wife, Jack, and my mother, Christine Heikkinen, and stepfather, Michael.
All right.
And now he's going to face the road.
Take one more big smile. 1, 2, and we got it. Thank you.
Well, this is great. I think we should just adjourn and go home.
We vote yes.
Yes.
No, we still have more good stuff to come. Madam President, that concludes our introductions for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you all for being here, and spouses for coming reluctantly and having photos taken. I can say that to Mr. Carr because I've known him for a really long time. But really, we appreciate you. This is something new that we're starting to do by introducing you and having you come forward and take pictures, and it's really nice. I feel like we're starting to build that relationship with you, and that's one of the big things that I've been talking about at leadership, and I talked to new teachers this morning about it as well. So anyway, thank you for allowing us to do that. On to the next, and I guess if you'd like to leave, you can. Look at the,
I wish.
yeah, don't hurt each other going out the door. Have a great night.
Yes, congratulations.
Think about us while we're here.
Yeah. All the overachievers in the back need
I
to
know.
come to the front.
That-
Hi, Deb. How are you? That was fun.
That is fun. Okay,
We
I'm
should
going to go
bring more
ahead.
babies. We should say bring
Item
babies.
B, possible action on the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property pursuant to Government Code Section 551.072. No action. C, possible action regarding consultation with board's attorney pursuant to Government Code Section 551.071, 1, pending and or possible litigation, no action. Item 7, recognitions. A, Reagan High School Choir Achievement. Dr. Newman.
Thank you, President Grona, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. I'd like to ask Julie Shore, our Executive Director for Fine Arts and Student Activities, to introduce this group.
Are we going to do the video first or last? Are we going to do the video before or after? Okay. I think we'd like to do it before. Is it ready?
As soon as it pops on.
So I'm going to go ahead and introduce this amazing group of kids. So thank you so much for having us this evening. I recently had the opportunity to travel with the very talented choir from Reagan High School to Florence, Italy for the Leonardo da Vinci International Choral Festival. Our Reagan students had the opportunity to interact and compete against students from all over the world, to include Indonesia, Serbia, China, Spain, and several others. The Reagan Choir came out on top, winning the entire festival. First place. It was incredible. Couldn't have been more proud. But I have to be honest and tell you that the most incredible part for me was watching these truly magnificent children that were well-mannered and humble and just perfection in what they were doing. It was so lovely to see. The students celebrated the success of other choral groups with standing ovations, fun-filled dance parties. It was the cutest thing I've ever seen, and truly plain and simple kindness. It was an honor to watch these students over the course of 11 days. Equally as incredible were the 3 Reagan choir directors. They each bring a little something special and different to this group of students. They were confident, classy, and positive throughout the entire trip, which is kind of hard when you're traveling abroad with over 100 people. I would like to introduce a few of the Reagan Choir officers and some of the trip attendees representing the over 300-member choir and their very talented directors. Kim Melendez. Noah Riccadelli. Spencer Landon. Connor Bensnick. Gabby Rivera. Foster Simonson. Ainsley Ford. Reagan Arduel. Sabrina Frost. Mary Lance. Caitlin Schaefer. Cadence Swearingen. And Diego Arroyo. And their very incredible, talented directors, Miss Amanda Jeffries, Mr. Christian Dela Cruz, and his very precious little one, and their head director, Miss Mary Coward. So congratulations to all of you. I'd love for you to scooch close together so we can take an awesome picture of all of you.
Sorry, I was waiting for the projector to start. Wish I had the controls myself.
Miss Shelton, please come up and take a picture.
I know you promised you wouldn't get up again.
Okay, strike them. She's jealous of that WC.
There we go. Big smile. 1, 2, and 3. I think you got it, but just in case. 1, 2, and thank you.
Thank you so much for coming, and again, congratulations. Y'all can exit right down the center.
Y'all have a good summer. Rest. Oh, it's
Yeah,
over.
rest.
Yeah, it's just about over. Congratulations, guys.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, guys. Thank you for coming. Thank you.
Where are we gonna see it?
We'd like to share a short video of the Italy trip with you, so you can hear them. This is one of the songs they sang while they were in one of the basilicas, which was amazing. So it's just a short little video, a minute and 30 seconds. I hope you enjoy. Thank you so much.
Congratulations again, that was amazing. Item 8, presentations. A, recap of the 86th Texas Legislature. Mr. Villarreal.
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests, I call on Deb Caldwell, our Director of Governmental Relations, to come to the podium.
Thank you. So I'm setting my timer. We're going to do a very quick update tonight. Before we get into the bills that passed, I know you have been carefully tracking all the headlines from the session. I think it's good to recap what the governor's emergency items were, because this really dictated the conversation that happened during the 86th Texas legislature. In his State of the State address at the beginning of session, he outlined these emergency items, and as you can see on the screen, several of them had to do with public education, and the legislators really came together and passed some meaningful legislation around these items. So just to quickly look at the stats from the 86th, these are just bills filed. You may see slightly different numbers that include things like concurrent resolutions and joint resolutions. I didn't put those on here. These are truly bills. This is truly policy. We typically monitor about 1,000 bills during the legislative session. That's how many that I track throughout from the time they're filed all the way to their passed. TEA recently reported to the State Board of Education that just over 1,100 bills were filed and passed, were filed affecting public education. You had the foresight to pass a legislative agenda to direct staff on the priorities we wanted to focus on during the session. This was very helpful to us. In the upcoming slides, anything that you see marked with that gold star indicates that there's some support on your legislative priorities. House Bill 3, you talked a lot during budget study sessions. Brian Moy did a terrific job unpacking this for you. It truly was landmark legislation. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on House Bill 3, but there are a few things that I think are worth noting that didn't come up in budget study sessions. These were the themes during y'all's conversations. These are the things that you talked about during your budget study session about what was the concerns. We're concerned about the sustainability of funding going into the future. We know that this bill is primarily contingent upon the Texas economy doing well. Diving a little bit deeper into what the bill does, there's quite a bit of education reform. The money certainly comes with strings attached. There really is an emphasis on getting the money to the students who need it the most. There is a recognition of poverty that's different than we've ever seen before through the compensatory education allotment. The focus on English language learners, on career and technical education. These were all some important reforms that are part of the bill. To talk a little bit about compensatory education, the comp ed allotment, Brian did cover this with you during the budget study session, but I just wanted to say that TEA has released some additional information about comp ed along with a video. While that's been helpful and has given us a little bit of information, we still don't have the official rules. There is a need to still assemble an advisory committee regarding comp ed, which is required in the bill. Applications have gone out from TEA asking for nominations for that committee. So we know that that committee still has to be selected and convened before we get any rules on this. Educator compensation, another important part of House Bill 3. Of course, you addressed it through the compensation plan, especially that first half. The state required us to spend a certain amount of our new funding on salaries. You as a board went above and beyond the state required amount that we were asked to spend, and you definitely addressed that first part. The bill also has a merit pay piece, the teacher incentive program. And I wanted to just very briefly touch on that because it wasn't covered in the budget study sessions because we have not adopted that program yet. This is a slide that the commissioner gave to the State Board of Education in June. These are TEA's numbers, not the district's numbers. This is just a guidance at this point for discussion. So the teacher incentive allotment, the purpose of it is truly to attract high-quality teachers to rural and high-poverty schools, to really combat that idea of teacher flight to suburban schools. So the idea is that there would be recognition of teacher quality with masters, recognized, and exemplary. And depending on where you are with that distinction, master, exemplary, or recognized, you could potentially earn additional funding if you go to a high poverty school, for example. So looking at the chart along the bottom, you have a range of 0 with non-economically disadvantaged, so no economically disadvantaged students in the school, to tier 1, which is the highest level of poverty. So if you are a master teacher, which is the highest level, if you are deemed a master teacher by your school district, and you're in a high poverty tier 1 campus, TEA believes you should earn $32,000 more on top of your existing salary that your district is paying. Again, these are TEA's numbers, these are not our numbers. If Northeast were to explore a teacher incentive program, it would take the better part of this year to develop those pieces, to develop what are the criteria we would use to distinguish master, exemplary, and recognized, and what those funding amounts would be. House Bill 3, as you know, also addressed property tax relief and recapture. The piece about recapture I wanted to say is that it doesn't fix recapture, it delays it, and I think Brian Moy did stress that in budget study sessions. So the trigger for us previously was once we got to $1.06, it would trigger recapture, and that was moved up to $1.08. Moving on to mental health and school safety, again, one of the governor's priorities. And I'm going to overwhelm you with a lot of bills just to show the volume of the school safety and mental health conversation that took place, but I'm not going to go over all of them. The two that are on the screen are probably the two most prevalent ones that are going to impact us the most. Senate Bill 11 does support your legislative agenda item. I think the spirit of it that you had related to ensure flexibility for school boards to respond to local safety and security needs, such as facility enhancements and mental health resources, and identify additional and ongoing state funding. Of course, we're still waiting on the rules to be released on how we're going to spend that $9.72 per average daily attendance allotment, how it will be spent, how the money will flow. That was not part of your budget adoption because we don't know how that's going to come to us yet. So we will amend the budget as needed once we know more. And House Bill 18 provides that mental health training for school staff. Just to point out on this slide, House Bill 19 will provide us with professional support through the Educational Service Center. Should we decide to utilize that support, it's not required. HB 403 applies to superintendents and board members. I thought you would be interested in this one. You will receive 1 hour of training to identify and report potential victims of sexual abuse, human trafficking, and other maltreatment of children. That will be a requirement. And HB 496 was introduced by a local representative, Barbara Gervin Hawkins, who covers the Roosevelt community. Prior to this bill, Northeast had proactively purchased bleeding control kits and had trained people who we thought were most apt to need them: police officers, school nurses, and athletic trainers. So we are a little bit ahead of that game, but what this is going to do is provide a station at each campus for public consumption, similar to how the AEDs are located. Again, more bills, again, showing you the volume of the conversation. We already comply with HB 2195 on this slide. And again, a lot of these things are things that we're either already doing or we don't necessarily need to do because we have our own wonderful Northeast Police Department. Moving on to bills that directly impact the school board. For HB 305 and HB 963, I will work with Marie King on those. This is going to require us to post some additional information about trustee elections to the website, and I'll work with Marie to get that information up. HB 2840, we've been doing this as a discretionary practice in terms of people coming up to speak on an agenda item rather than waiting for matters to the floor. So after reviewing this with Rick Lopez, it doesn't feel like fundamentally it's going to alter anything that we are already doing as a district and you have put into your procedures. SB 668 does support one of your legislative agenda items related to transparency and notification of charter expansion. SB 1640 and SB 2283 are additional school board bills. SB 2283 clarifies the disqualification standards for candidates with a felony, and you did have a legislative priority item related to that. Moving on to accountability and assessment. There weren't as many accountability and assessment bills this session as we've seen in previous sessions. This is probably the one that rose to the top as the one that people are really talking about, and it really addresses testing and how we test students. It seemed to have the purpose of alleviating this idea of students being a lockdown testing kind of situation where it takes up all day, they can't do anything, they can't talk, they can't go to lunch on the normal schedule. So what this bill does is it allows TEA to break up the STAR test over 3 parts over multiple days. So instead of one really long day of testing, it potentially could be 3 days of testing. One of the misconceptions about the bill, continuing to talk about HB 3906, is that it eliminated the writing tests in 4 and 7. While the standalone test is not going to continue, what will happen is writing concepts are now going to be embedded in all grade levels 3 through 8. And this is in response to the federal government telling Texas that we weren't adequately testing writing. Because we have writing standards within our English language arts standards, they're not standalone standards like some states actually have writing as their own standards. Because they're in the same standards as reading, and because under federal law we're required to test reading, we're also required to test all the skills that students are expected to learn. So writing is going to be embedded in all grade levels. So it actually is an expansion of writing test questions. Other bills of interest, really quick. There's a lot more that impacts education in some way. The first 2 items really have to do with bonds. HB 440, again, it's something that you guys have been doing. This requires a school board and a public meeting to vote on projects with unspent bond proceeds. We have been doing that as a school district. The ballot language and voter information document is just trying to get more information out to the voters before they go to that booth, inside that booth or at the terminal, to vote for that bond item, to provide them more information about debt obligation and things along those lines. Other bills of interest, Brian Moy did talk to you a little bit about SB 12, the impact that TRS contributions will be going up for the district and for employees in future years. SB 2293 directs the state to create a common charter application and therefore maintain a common statewide waiting list. This is significant because it snuck in as an amendment to this bill toward the end of session. This was not a standalone bill just focused on this. It was tacked on as an amendment, and we were actually surprised that it made it all the way through.
Deb,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm here.
Sorry, I'm like, who's talking? Hi, Mrs. Williams.
SB 213, IGC. What's IGC?
I'm sorry, yes. That's the graduation committees. That's part of your legislative agenda, individual graduation committees. So this is a student who's not able to pass STAR but can demonstrate academic success in other ways, like a portfolio of work. And there is an entire process related to ensuring that those students are demonstrating that academics without having to have that STAR test across the stage.
Thank you.
Sorry. So many people describe this as a kumbaya session, a boring session, a quiet session, and it honestly was. There wasn't as much infighting and disgruntled lawmakers as we've seen in previous reasons, but I think there is a really good reason for that. I think it's because redistricting is on the horizon. The 2018 election saw some major changes. The House picked up seats, the Senate picked up seats. It balanced the party lines a little bit more, especially in the House. We have a census coming up. Congressional districts, state districts are redrawn after that census data. We also have 2020 elections coming up. Will we see more seats flip? Will they remain the same? That all leads up to the 2021 session. If there is greater balance in the chambers, those redistricting conversations become a lot more interesting. That will happen in 2021, and then the 2022 election will be the first one with new maps. So it's an interesting time right now in Texas, right? Speaker Bonin is under fire for an alleged secret meeting with Empowered Texans that has been recorded, which has not yet been released. In that meeting, allegedly, he produced a list of 10 Republican members who he asked Empowered Texans for help with primarying against, one of them being a representative for Northeast ISD, Representative Steve Allison. Again, these are all allegations. Nothing is absolutely confirmed at this point in the public eye. We also, at the federal level, are seeing folks decide not to run again for Congress. We've had 4 Republicans in Texas decide not to run again at the election. These are all races that were very close last time. Will Hurd, a congressman who represents part of the Reagan community for Northeast, he has decided not to run for re-election. He only won by, I think, like half a percentage point, 900 votes, right, last time. So all 4 of the congressmen who've come out recently to say they're not going to run again all had very close races 2 years ago. And that concludes my presentation. I know it was quick and furious, but it's really just a quick overview. I know that you've been following all this stuff very closely. Any questions?
We've been following it closely thanks to you.
Yes.
Thank you again. Did anybody have any questions for Deb? Did
No.
David need to know anything?
David has some questions.
Yes, sir.
For the rules on HB 3, I know my understanding is that those are currently being looked at and written? Do you know what the time frame is on some of those or all of those coming out?
So what TEA has been doing, which has been helpful, and I hadn't necessarily seen them do it at this comprehensive level before, is every week they're releasing some information about components of House Bill 3. These are not official rules. This is more giving you a glimpse into how they're going to interpret the bill to develop the rules. So there's lots of videos that are being posted. There's a web page, a House Bill 3 web page that TEA is maintaining for you to go to. It seems that buzz we are hearing is it could be spring. I know Dr. Micah has a good story to tell about the commissioner when he talked with them about not even having the staff hired to write these pieces. So we're not optimistic that it's going to be anytime soon.
Anybody else? Do you have any comments? Terry?
I'd just like to thank you, Deb, for all the hard work that you've done on this. I know it took a lot, but you are diligent and bring a lot of good insight and information to us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And next time you can track 1,093 bills instead of 1,092.
I will try. I will do my best. And
Always better yourself.
Even then, some still fall through because it's penal code and not education code. I recently had to apologize to Dr. Brummett via email because I missed one, and I felt so mortified, but of course he was on top of it. But it was a penal code item related to brass knuckles, and I'm sorry that I wasn't tracking that bill. But it impacts us and our student parent code of, handbook. And my goodness, I should have been tracking 1,093, and one fell through the cracks.
That's okay, Deb.
Apology accepted.
David said that's okay.
Thank you very much for your hospitality on that.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the update, Deb. Item B, Transportation Department efficiencies. We're going to move down to a few other B under 10B. So now we're going to 9, Board Business. A, possible action regarding 2019 TASA-TASB delegate and alternate. And that's me. Do I have anyone who would like to be the delegate or the alternate when we go to TASB in September?
Why, Ms. Rona, I would love to be the delegate.
Well, thank you for volunteering, Ms. Winkley. Do I have anyone who would like to be the alternate?
You want it? I'm happy to do it. I had understood I was going to be not going to be. I heard the new guy was going to have to be. No, but I'd be happy to be the alternate.
Okay, that's really interesting that we're kind of fighting over it. That's awesome.
As the backup, you have to wash my car. I heard that was part of the thing. I heard that. I read it in the minutes.
Okay.
Thanks, David.
All right, so do I have a motion to nominate Sandy Winkley as the voting delegate and David Byer as the alternate for the 2019 TASB Delegate Assembly?
So move.
Thank you, Mrs. Huey. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. Thank you. Item B, possible action regarding candidate endorsement for the TASB Board of Directors. So we got a letter from Robert Westbrook, who is a Schertz-Cibolo Universal City Board member. He's actually the president. Oh, what? Oh, is he here? Okay. Thank you, Maria. I would have just been going, you know how I go. Just, so he is seeking to be the Region 20 Position D Director. And on that form that we got, it does not look like he has an opponent. Okay. But he just is wanting us to endorse him. Is that the right word?
Yes, in some regions, there are multiple candidates for the same position. In our case and in Northside's case, we don't have to worry about endorsements and all that stuff. So that's why y'all have never had to deal with it. But when we have two positions in Region 20, that are kind of open to the other districts. And if they have a certain percentage of endorsements, then they are the automatic nominee. Now, although Robert is unopposed, he felt that it was important to go out for the endorsements this year. In the past, we've had people that run from the floor at delegate assembly, and it does cause some problems. But he is the nominee of the committee. I'm on that committee.
And
so.
he's the existing.
And
board
he is the
director right now.
existing, he's been a great representative of Region 20, and he's worked really hard in this area too, so.
Okay, did you have a question?
No, I have him confused with superintendent.
Oh,
Yep, I got it. I
Okay.
have it in my head now.
So he really doesn't need our endorsement. He
it
is.
just would help though if they got.
For appearance's sake, he wanted to show the value of the endorsement process.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, so would we like to endorse a candidate for this Region 20 position D?
I don't think there's anything negative toward it.
There's
I
not.
think it'd be-
There's nothing negative, and I can
Absolutely.
I can
If it'll
definitely
help him,
agree.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so do I have a motion to endorse Robert Westbrook for the Region 20 position D on the TASB Board of Directors?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Winkley. Do I have a second?
Got it?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, the motion carries. Okay, thank you. Item 10, new business for possible board action. A, board policy. 1, possible action regarding second reading of board policy CW Local Hero Stadium enshrinement and one-time exception to policy timeline for Hero Stadium selection process. Dr. Newman.
Thank you, President Gronum, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. This is the second reading of CW Local. However, I do want to bring your attention to the added verbiage that states, given that there have been some necessary revisions to the policy in connection with this second reading, the process could not be completed for 2019 in accordance with the policy. Thus, the administration now seeks a one-time exception to the applicable timeline in 2019 in order that the selection process can occur under the newly revised policy. And if you approve it, I will be working with Marie King to set the timeline.
Okay, perfect. Does anybody have any questions about that? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the second reading of CW Local Hero Stadium enshrinement revisions as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Byer. Do I have a second?
Second?
Thank you, Mrs. Winkley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the motion carries. Item 2, possible action regarding update 113, first reading. Ms. King.
Once again, good evening, Madam President, board members, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. We bring to you this evening for approval first reading of Update 113. This update focuses on updating legal policies affected by changes in administrative rules and Commissioner of Education rulings. Several local policies have been updated as well to better align with these changes and for organization and restricting purposes. There are a total of 47 policies in Update 113. 36 of those are legal, which the board doesn't have to vote on. There are a total of 11 local policies, which are policies we are asking for approval this evening. With an amendment to Board Policy BDD Local, I put a copy at your place, third paragraph, to read, a staff request for legal advice from the district's legal counsel must be submitted through the superintendent and/or designee. Also, an amendment to Board Policy EHBAF Local, which you received Friday, which was sent, will read, the superintendent or designee is responsible for coordinating the provisions of equipment to campuses in compliance with the law. If you have any questions regarding these policies, we can answer them now. If not, we request the board's approval for first reading to Update 113 with amendments as presented. The changes mentioned will be incorporated into Update 113, second reading in September. Thank you.
I'm so sorry.
Did you fall? Okay.
Oh. I don't know why that made me laugh. All right. Because it's wrong. Because, yeah. Because you were asleep. All right. Now that I said it, I can quit laughing. Does anybody have any questions about this policy from Ms. King? No? Oh, you do. Sorry.
This was a huge update to try to digest, and I think I'm still working on it, but this is just kind of curiosity more than anything else. On page, it's under the student rights and responsibilities. It's FNF local, page 55, 56, 57 in our agenda. And there's all this crossed out. And I wasn't sure why there were these drastic changes, like, just for example, the very last one, parent notification, and it's all crossed out about notifying a parent if articles or materials are found in a locker and things like that. Why would all of that be?
Dr. Brumman?
That's just an example. I mean, it just seemed like it was some really drastic changes.
Yes, ma'am. And the reason for the revisions to FNF are to better clarify some of the areas where the Student Code of Conduct overlaps. You're getting visual aids, Ms. Huey, where the Student Code of Conduct overlaps with penal code.
Okay.
Marijuana being a perfect example. Obviously, that's a violation of penal code, and therefore is a potential criminal charge, but it's also a violation of the Student Code of Conduct. So what FNF does is clarify the rights that students do have with regard to searches. For example, recent Fifth Circuit Court law that indicates what searches are impermissibly intrusive. Looking through a student's underwear, for example, is typically seen as impermissibly intrusive, and therefore there are guidelines with regard to that, while at the same time strengthening the district's position with regard to what we can search, much like the proactive efforts that you all had to make last year with regard to terroristic threats. It explicitly clarifies language that, for example, lockers are the district's property and no consent is required to search those, provided that there's probable cause for that search and that search is justified at inception. With regard to the notification, it's a legal notification to parents that in many instances, Ms. Huey, what will happen is a parent will say, you had no right, Mr. or Ms. Principal, to question that student without me or without our attorney being present. That's not the case, because at that point the student isn't being charged with any potential crime. They're merely being interviewed with regard to a potential violation of Student Code of Conduct. So what FNF does is it explicitly clarifies that students in the context of school discipline do not have a right not to incriminate themselves in that way.
I think that's probably what raised the red flag for me, is because we have had the parents that say, you had no right, and
The district has every right in those
exactly. I don't even know, I can't even imagine how we can even get that information out to where parents can, because we keep hearing, you know, whether it's freedom of speech or whatever, that we are a limited form of that. So, yeah.
There is a contingent of the population that watches way too much Law and Order.
Oh, there it is. It's that TV thing again, Dan Patrick.
Having
Okay.
said that, there is specific language in the Student Parent Handbook, which every family is required to acknowledge
Right.
electronically, that says that you're aware of those kinds of stipulations. As a board, you recall last year taking a very proactive stance towards
Yes.
terroristic threats, for example. And in instances where a student has that allegation made of them, there's a very clear delineation between what the administrator is responsible for in addressing a Student Code of Conduct violation versus what Chief McCampbell and law enforcement is responsible for in addressing a potential crime under penal code. So that language has always existed. One of the things that you saw at August Leadership was we conducted a specific all-level breakout session with regard to searches, and that specificity and what rights and responsibilities administrators have in those scenarios. So those clarifications, candidly, from a legal perspective, are to the district's benefit because they further clarify what an administrator's right is in those scenarios to address safety issues that may also be violations of code of conduct.
Well, that part's really great to hear, because I know it's an extremely volatile subject, so that part is good to hear. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions?
I don't have any questions. I guess I just have well, maybe it is a question. So this is the first reading.
Yes.
So we will see this again, right? Okay. And I apologize. I don't have, wasn't able to read through everything yet, but I thank Sandy for bringing up, those points. And my concern with that particular section is to make sure that everything's administered consistently. Right. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Miss Williams, so Dr. Brummett, this was something that he started working on last year. This has come into, people are looking at it a little differently. And so what you will see through all of this, and it's truly an example of what I said at August Leadership last Tuesday, we're going to look at everything with a new set of eyes, right? A new set of lenses. And so he's going through this, and he did a really good job of training our administrators about where that line is on searches, because that has evolved over time. And so what he did is really clarify for administrators what they can and can't do and where those lines clearly are. Because sometimes in the heat of an investigation, as a former administrator, you can kind of get caught up in it. And so what he did is really made sure to back them up and train everyone through it, and he did a great job with it.
So my husband has moved on from Law and Order. Now he watches True Confessions on Netflix.
That's the next step.
Yes, Dr.
And
Newman.
Mrs. Grona, I do want to bring something to the board's attention, and it is with legal. This is the first that we have heard that the agency is looking at ratings in specific domains. And if you will notice, it talks about a D or an F at any campus in a domain. Now, what's interesting here is this update, I believe, came out July 10th with this verbiage. However, the commissioner had put out a request for input for this policy that addresses specifically the domains and ratings of D. And so we're going to be watching this very carefully because I'm curious whether this verbiage will stay.
So I have a comment on that too. So this is one of those things that concern me. I would never sit up here and tell you that a D rating is great. All right, I don't. But what I've said over and over is this new accountability system is probably the most fair we've had to date. This type of piece, to me, is taking a step backwards. We used to only be focused on pass-fail. We went to this growth mindset, which is really 2A and 2B in the accountability system. This sanctioning a campus for a D in a certain domain, it's like we start chasing our tail. And I'm not certain why he wishes to do this. And again, I was concerned a little while ago when Region 20 released something talking about sanctioning campuses for a domain rating of D. And when we called them, their verbiage was, we're taking a proactive stance, which was kind of struck me as odd. Now you read in here, it's almost like it's a done deal, even though he was to be gathering feedback. So I'm
And just
pretty
one other
cautious.
addition, it can penalize a district as well. If any campus has a D in any domain, that district is not allowed to get any score above 89.
Mm-hmm. Remember, House Bill 3 has that line of unintended consequences.
Uh-huh. Yes.
Just a reminder, it gave him broad discretion and authority over some things. So,
Mhm. Okay. Anything else on this one?
No.
So do I have a motion to approve first reading of attached local policies included in Update 113?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Winkley. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the motion carries. Please tell me that was wrong.
It was,
We have some technical difficulties over there this evening.
May I go home?
No, because you're up. We're going back now to item 8B,
Oh my
Transportation Department Efficiencies. Mr. Clary.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests, tonight we have a presentation from Jack DeForest, our Executive Director of Transportation, and Bill Harrison, our Director of Transportation. And the presentation is really centered and focused around what they've been doing to help alleviate and mitigate some of the driver shortage. So they're going to tag team the presentation, and Mr. Bill is going to start off first.
Thank you, Mr. Clary. Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. First of all, thank you for having us tonight. Thank you for all you guys do each and every day. And we'd like to share just a couple things about transportation with the efficiencies. We've got a couple slides of kind of where we've been the last 4 or 5 years with our school buses, and a couple comments about what we've been able to save dollars-wise and overtime-wise. And then I'll turn it over to Jack, and he's going to talk about some of our driver recruitment activities that we've done the last couple of years that seem to be working for the most part. So let's see. So the slide that is up here now, if you, this is just kind of looking back. You see the school year 2014-15 on down. So it's about a 5-year look. And then you have our regular education buses where you see 231, special needs buses 81, total buses on routes 312. What I'd like to draw your attention to is as we've gone 2015-16 on down, you'll see on the far right that in red like -8, that's from the prior year, where if you take a look at that -8 and -8 going back 3 or 4 years, that's primarily north of 1604. If you remember, Bulverde Road used to be 2 lanes of dirt almost. And so as they widened that, that allowed us to get places quicker, be able to be more efficient, and consolidate some routes. Also, what happened back there, it was in that 2015-16 time period, is when the bridge on Wilderness Oak near Mountain Lodge, we used to go up, prior to 2014, we'd go up to Comal County, that first roadway up there, and bring our buses all the way over to Canyon Gulf, and then come down to just to go to, let's say, Wilderness Oak. So we had a lot of deadhead miles. So with that bridge, it really helped us consolidate for those couple of years. You see 2017-18, again, consolidation. That was a little bit at our BAC terminal. Older neighborhoods around Lee, Churchill, we found we didn't have quite the ridership, so we were able to consolidate and save those buses. Our big one was just last school year, as we went from 17-18 into 2018-19. You'll note where we were able to take off the road 17 routes. On the next slide, I have some numbers that talk highly of that, but that was where we presented to Dr. Gotardi in the spring of 2018 with a driver shortage. How do we still get kids to school safely? And so we did what we call double runs, which is where, I'll just give you an example. At Royal Ridge, we had 5 buses. All 5 buses would go pick the kids up in the morning. Well, what we did is we took one bus out of the mix, and one bus would go take their regular route, and then they go right back. And we had a rule that we needed to be back in 15 minutes, and we're able to do it in about 9 or 10. But one bus would actually do 2 neighborhoods or do 2 routes versus one. It was so many kids we couldn't consolidate because we would do that. But when you have a high ridership in some of these routes, the double run has worked. We ended up doing about 13 or 14 of those, variety of campuses. We did 2 middle schools, Harris and Wood, and quite honestly, it worked well for us. We're instituting those same routes this year, and we've added 2 or 3 others where we can just, I think that's Fox Run is one of them, and I believe Hardy Oak. We can leave the campus in the afternoon with a busload of kids, but we can't combine them because we got 40, 50 kids. The campus will have to watch 40, 50 kids. We'll be back in about 10, 12 minutes and grab that second group. It's just what we need to do, and it's worked well. We've had, there's principals in the room and administrators. It's worked well, and we appreciate all the help that they've had as we've communicated that, and so there we go. You'll note on 2019 and 20, I've added in 5 buses, primarily 4 of them there on with the regular routes. That's primarily due to the pre-K academy at West Avenue. Now, we had a deadline for kids to register this last Friday, so our routing team was in early Saturday. We've been working hard since then. We hope to, by Friday, we know we're going to probably need 2 more buses to do that. So at West Avenue, where in prior years we had 1 bus handling that campus, we have 9 buses now handling that. And so to do that, we had to add a couple buses, just in the whole scheme of things, to be able to move the kids and get them to school on time, home from school in a safe and efficient manner. So it's just adding back at least 2. I put 201 on there because we have some unknowns still to come in the next 3 or 4 days. I'm hoping we don't have to have buses, but that's where we're at with that.
Mr. Harrison, I have a question
Yes,
over
ma'am.
here. So on this slide, bus routes are equivalent to the number of buses? Because or do you have maybe buses running multiple routes?
Yes. On the next slide, I have my first bullet point is about that. We have buses that will do 3 or 4 or 5 runs. They'll do an elementary school, a middle school, high school. They might do a pre-K shuttle. They might do a C-Tech shuttle. We've got magnet buses going all, from one end of the district to the other.
Okay, because you have total bus routes, and then you have number of buses. So that's the same, I guess?
Yes, same. It is the same. So Ms. Williams, here's what you were kind of speaking of there. Our traditional buses are doing 3 or 4 tiers. So as an example, a driver will clock in the morning, go to an elementary school, do a middle school, and do a high school. That's kind of the standard. If they get to a 4th one, they might be doing a pre-K shuttle after their morning elementary run, or they might be doing a shuttle to data at Ed White or STEM at Nimitz, where we can fit them in. And those are coming from all over the district. So that's how we get to 4. This is the first year where we have more than 5 or 6 buses that will actually be doing 5 routes, and it's because of the pre-K academy. We actually will have buses that they've normally done Delview and Colonial Hills, but we're going to have them clock in, and they're going to bring kids from Bulverde Creek, Cerna, the outlying hub locations. So they're going to be traveling at 6:15, 6:30 in the morning down to the pre-K academy, dropping kids off at 6:50, and then they'll start their regular route or their old route of Delview, and then the Delview buses actually do Colonial Hills because they're so close, and we have different bell times so we can work that. Then they do Jackson Middle School and Lee. So there's 5 routes on some of those. They're going to be going from bell to bell for all the campus. I think we have about 7 or 8 buses that will be doing 5 routes. Total bus stop reductions, we did this about 4 years ago. We went from about 12,000 bus stops to about 8,000. And as we reduced routes, we have a quarter-mile walkout for elementary kids where, in other words, the stop cannot be more than a quarter mile from their home. Middle school and high school, it can't be more than a half mile. So we've met that max, and we're able to save stops. And what it did is that helped us route more buses and just be a little bit more efficient with what we did. So we have ongoing bus route consolidation. It's just something that we have 4 guys in the routing office, and that's all they do is look at that. This time of year, it's big time. We have a goal of this Friday going live on our site with all the bus routes so parents and teachers and administrators can see all that stuff. I mentioned previously, I got the stars on those next 3, the double runs. We're going to continue that for this school year. From 17-18 to 18-19, we saved about a little over, like 3,100 overtime hours, which is primarily, I know President Grona, you were out at and Sandy, you were out there too. We had 45 or 50 people in there. That's where we saved all that, 45, 50 people. They're driving AM, PM. And so last year, we were real good. We had very few need for those folks not until about Christmas time. And when that happened, we lost some drivers, and that's just kind of a trend it is. So, but by the time the whole school year went by, we saved $3,000 in overtime hours, or excuse me, 3,000 overtime hours. And that parlayed into about $400,000 in operating costs by parking those 17 buses. All full-time staff members are required to have and hold a CDL, commercial driver's license, and drive routes as needed, and everyone's basically a bus driver. And as I turn it over to Mr. DeForest, he's going to talk a little bit about the CDL and some of the hiring practices that we've done. Thank you for your time.
Just a comment on the double runs. That's not what we want to do. We don't want to be doing double runs. If we can get enough drivers, then the double runs go away, because it is an impact on the campuses when we have to do double runs, because they do have to wash the kids for a short period of time. I mean, and we say a short period of time. For them, it's probably a long period of time, because it's at the end of the day, they're ready to go home. Kids are ready to go home. So that's not what we want to do. But because of the driver shortage, that's just what we've had to implement. And hopefully we can someday get to that point where we can eliminate the double runs. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Mr. Clary. Some of the things that we have done over more than 5 years as a department has participated in all the HR job fairs. We have advertised in the local community newspaper, which goes to tens of thousands of addresses in our district. In 2013, we were the first district to go out and contract with Clear Channel to buy billboards on the side of the road. And not only did that make the phone ring, but a couple other school districts copied us in the year that followed. So we knew that worked. We've put banners on more fences and yard type garage sale signs in the front of more schools than I can count. Bill invented the Drive and Apply event, which we held this last Saturday, and some 6 other times before that in the last 18 months. Bill found us some exclusive advertising on the board reader at the DPS offices, where you wait for your number to come up. They run digital commercials between those. We exclusively have a 20-second NEISD bus driver commercial with a number that viewers can call, and we'll run that for a couple of months ahead. We have put advertising in 17 apartment community break rooms and laundry rooms. A couple of years ago, we started a $500 referral bonus for our hourly employees, and no kidding, about half a dozen people a year refer somebody to be hired. They have to last 88 days or more, and we've paid that $500 happily to some of our employees. We're working with a local ad agency to see what we can put together for better messaging or advertising. Some of the signs and banners that you've seen either online or hanging on the bus. That's the back of Castle Hills. We can't do that anymore. There's a nice walking track out there. And so just to kind of get to the end here, the commercial driver's license is the hard part about being a bus driver. It's not the kids. It's not cleaning the bus. It's getting a CDL. There are enough steps up there that you can see that it's up to a 45-day process before any of our new employees can go on the job without supervision, without a trainer beside them. You've probably heard me say before, we really only hire about 1 in 5 contacts. Part of it is due to medical issues that people discover when they decide they want to drive a school bus and have to pursue that DOT physical exam. They will find your blood sugar is all wrong, your blood pressure is too high, or your eyes don't work, and we lose people to the physical exam process. So getting and holding a CDL, like Mr. Clary has over there for 2 years now, it's a feat in and of itself because our average age is 58, and people don't get healthier as they get older, as a rule. So I'd point out that there's a lot of time involved. But we work it. We have the best training section possibly in the state of Texas in a public school district. And we're proud to pursue anybody who wants to come aboard, try to come aboard, and turn them into a fantastic bus driver. So at this time, I need to turn this over to Shyla Witten, the Senior Director of Human Resources Services. Shyla?
And just one last comment. Shyla, you can come on up. Just one last comment. If you caught what Mr. DeForest said, that, maybe we get 1 in 5 applicants, 1 out of the 5 that comes through the door, because there are so many requirements, and it's not Northeast requirements for that. If it was up to us, we'd let anybody drive a bus. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Me? Can I? Me?
Yes, ma'am.
Air Grona?
Yes. They're not Northeast, they are Department of Transportation rules, and we have to follow those. And because of that, it takes a special professional to drive a bus. So thank you, Mr. DeForest. Thank you,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Harrison. Shyla, thank you.
And I would like to say Ms. Witten is coming up to address item B1 on the agenda.
So I need to call that. Is that what you're telling me? Okay. Yes, okay. Shyla, give me just 1 minute, please. Item 10B1, or item 10B, Instruction and Campus Administration. 1, possible action regarding proposed bus driver and transportation personnel compensation plan adjustment. Shyla, thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, members of the board, executive staff, and guests. I just want to first begin with presenting some information to you. We've been working very closely with the Transportation Department and presenting information to executive staff about our current recruitment and retention efforts, specifically regarding compensation. We presented an agenda item that you adopted a budget and compensation plan in June, but after time, we've had an opportunity to look at statistics and information regarding our retention and recruitment of bus drivers. So specifically regarding last year, we looked at our turnover rate for bus drivers, and we're at a 35% turnover rate, which results in beginning the 19-20 school year with approximately 27 vacancies for transportation. Last school year, the Human Resources Department processed 87 new hires. Unfortunately, 46% resigned within their first year. For the total school year, we processed 101 resignations. Though they resigned for various reasons, we do want to emphasize that approximately 31% of those declined the position, accepted another position, or abandoned the position. They may have done that for various reasons, including other employment, but it's still a significant number that we thought is valuable to present to you this evening. The Transportation Department also tracks monthly their vacancies. On average, they have about 20 vacancies per month, where they showed a high of 31 in 1 month and as low as 14. They mentioned previously, I think it was Mr. Harrison or Mr. DeForest, that said we have our peak times that begin after typically Christmas time and spring break, where we see that gap in time they're working, where many do decide to leave. What we also want to highlight is some of the things that Mr. DeForest mentioned about what we do to recruit and retain our current bus drivers. Some of these are comparable to some districts that already offer these incentives, but specifically to highlight what Northeast offers. We guarantee 25 hours per week for our bus drivers. They also have other opportunities to accept additional routes and work more hours per week. The referral bonus, which Mr. DeForest mentioned. We also have perfect attendance, where per pay period, they have the opportunity to earn about an additional $18.75 per week with a maximum of $750 per school year. They also have a perfect attendance award that they offer for employees that meet this all year round. They receive a polo shirt, and they have a recognition and award that they conduct at the end of the school year. That is awarded to approximately 50 to 60 employees each school year. So for those that continue with us, they are incentivized by this program. We also have for our bus drivers where they receive 5 paid holidays. And for those that meet the safe driving record for a 2-year period, they get a nice cool weather jacket with the Northeast emblem for the Transportation Department. But most significantly, even after adopting the budget and compensation plan, we were able to review where we stand compared to other school districts. You can see quite a difference for some districts between the 18-19 and 19-20 school year. They proposed these rates we have right now in order highest to lowest, where San Antonio ISD is advertising $15.75 an hour. We move on to Judson, that is $14.80. Shirt Cibolo at $14.50. Northside, we reflect here that they start at $14.45, but they do offer a 50 cents incentive after 6 months of employment. And then Bernie, Alamo Heights, and are about $14. Kamala ISD is $13.50, and then Northeast UC is currently at the lowest at $13.36. So tonight, what we want to bring back to you is that during the compensation plan adoption in our agenda item, we wanted the Board of Trustees to recognize that market conditions and recruiting needs, salary evaluation and processes, and other similar factors may present the need for administration to recommend salary increases. At that time, the board granted the superintendent or designee authority to implement such increases upon presentation of this information that explained and supported such increases. So based on the review of the compensation plans adopted by the surrounding school districts, the Northeast Independent School District is currently the lowest paying district for our bus drivers. So we evaluated this extensively and wanted to come to you with recommendations on how we believe that we can compete. We first realized that by making a recommendation as noted here to bring the entry for bus drivers up to $14.50, it would require us to consider upgrading them from an 03 to 04. That does not alone solve the problem. In doing so, we have other positions that are impacted by this. So we would come with a recommendation to also provide an equity adjustment to all the staff that are in these positions, and that would include the general pay increase off of the new pay grade. So what's reflected on the right-hand side is an estimated annual increase per employee. Now, because bus drivers work less days and on average work less hours per week, the increase is reflected here as $1,460 annually. For two other positions that we have that would be upgraded and adjusted, that is the shop helper and under hood crew. That would be approximately $3,432, and that is because they work year-round and they are regularly scheduled for 40 hours a week. Second, we would like to provide an equity adjustment for all other transportation personnel that are already classified in the 04 pay grade, because by moving the bus drivers into this new pay grade, we want to ensure we don't have any compressions or inequities, so they would get the same corresponding increase that's reflected here. And then lastly, we had been looking at the current trainer evaluators that are classified presently in the pay grade 04, but due to the nature of their job, we believe with this change, we should recommend and approve upgrading them to an 05 and then providing them an equity adjustment to ensure that we don't have any inequities or further compression. And that resulting increase would be about $4,493 for those impacted employees. So here it reflects, if all of those recommendations are adopted, what the total estimated cost impact would be. We worked with the budget department and they were able to reflect what it would be with fully loaded benefit costs, et cetera. And so you can see here the number of individuals impacted by the first recommendation would be about 241 employees. Then we have 11 other transportation personnel with the positions listed here: the camera helper, parts clerk, and routing specialist, tire and brake technician, and then lastly, the trainer evaluators. There's 6 incumbents in that job. So the total estimated cost is $368,287. Are there any questions regarding the information presented?
I do have one question. When our employees leave, a bus driver turns in his resignation, is there an exit interview? Is there a survey? Do we do feedback along the way to see what the issues might be, aside from I got another job or, better pay?
Upon resignation, an email notification goes to every employee that submits a resignation requesting from them voluntary information regarding their decision to resign. We don't have a high participation currently from the auxiliary department. I can't speak if they do face-to-face exits for the transportation team. Do y'all happen to conduct any face-to-face interviews?
If I could just add to that. Yes, so typically a driver tells his supervisor why he or she is leaving, except for the few that resign online in the middle of the night on Lawson. You can do that. But what we found when we peeled everything back is actually annually we lose a significant number of drivers to retirement, 18 last year, because our crew starts at an older age and we get to leave sooner. And we lose folks, unfortunately, to medical issues, and we really don't have a way to affect retirement or medical issues. We're looking for about a third of the total of folks that leave to possibly save them, if you will.
Got it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
And the Human Resources Department is trying to initiate a more proactive way to gain that information through the exit process. So we hope to get more response from our bus drivers as well as other employees for reasons that they're departing.
Has pay grade been, or, going to a greener pasture, has that ever been a reason? It is. My gosh, I had no idea we were the.
We were the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Again, Ms. Winkley, since 2011, no new money was
Right,
coming in.
right, and I
And so
understand that,
there
right.
was an adjustment, I believe, Ron, 4 years ago? About,
Yes,
that
about
we
4 years.
kind of adjusted, and we've never been at the top, but we've never been at the bottom. And so I've even watched, Bill shared with me a lot of times that these people that drive buses are, they feel the need to come in and report to them why they're doing it. And pay is now something that's entered that discussion, that,
Okay.
I'm driving a classroom full of kids that I can never turn around, right? And I can go make, because to a lot of these folks, 50 cents is a lot of money.
Right.
And so, we can't compete right now
Okay.
with pay.
That's right. Great.
Okay.
I have
Go ahead.
a few questions. One related to the question I asked earlier. So how many total buses do we have?
Mr. DeForest?
Our fleet, it numbers about 420 buses at the moment, of which some 300 are on routes. There are 28 buses assigned across the high school campuses, and then the rest are available for field trips.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And so as far as our recruitment,
Yeah, you might as well just stay up here.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
so as far as our recruitment, do we know how we, and maybe you answered this earlier, I wasn't asleep, I was thinking, but Ron, no. How do we compare, not just pay-wise, but how do we compare to other districts as far as their retention? How do they recruit? Other factors besides just the pay. And do we look at maybe retired bus drivers from VIA or folks in that industry or used to be in that industry?
Yes, ma'am. So to take the first question, I can't speak to the recruiting activities of other districts, but can tell you that a district to the east of us routinely reports that their routes are full and they have 10 people sitting in the break room. That district actually has quite a few of our employees, from their director on down to drivers in their employee. We feel like we have a great edge on a lot of districts because we have 3 terminals and 3 places of opportunity for drivers to come in and work hard, and the ones that would like to raise their hand for a full-time opportunity later can do that predictably with us, because we don't have just a single terminal with 1 supervisor and a dispatcher. We have a lot of opportunity as all of our full-time staff, and I'll say it, I've said it 100 times, including me, started out here at some point in the last decade or more as a part-time bus driver. So we have opportunity for our folks that come in and would like to do more on a daily basis. But we're really proud of the many drivers we have that have been behind the wheel for 10 and 20 and some 30 years. You may know, if you've seen press releases, last year the best bus driver in America at the Detroit National School Bus Rodeo, he's here. He's been here 18 years. We have that quality of driver too. So whether they come in and want to advance or they want to be the best bus driver in America, literally, we have folks like that. But as Dr. Micah said, it's hard to compete when people leave to go next door or just up the road for that 50 cents or $1.25.
And then there's also
Yes, ma'am.
the unemployment rate is still pretty low. So, there's lots of opportunities, out there for people to just go from not just another school district, but another, job altogether.
Yes,
So
ma'am,
we're
we
competing
occasionally
with
get
that.
new folks in who spend about a year, and they go to that big opportunity that was kind of being set for them and held up back to civil service in the military, perhaps. We lose a few folks to VIA, but some of them come back. That's a very different world of bus driving than ours. Nights, weekends, and holidays. We're parked most nights, weekends, and holidays. So it's, I would add that we have 107 former military, not everybody retired, but former military. So nearly 30% of our staff is a veteran of one kind or another, even from the Royal British Army. We have all kinds. A lot of retired civil servants, policemen, even have a retired civil servant attorney who's one of the very good bus drivers that we have. We look for folks wherever we can find them, and our operations manager doesn't miss an opportunity to talk to folks. But again, it's one hire for every 5 contacts. So if we need 100, that's 500 contacts.
But Ms. Williams, if I may interject, what you're talking about is recruitment. Happens to be one of my 3 priorities, right? We've already been discussing, Mr. Clary, myself, Mr. DeForest, about a potential different way to recruit, because they listed many things that they're doing currently. We've recently become aware that a different strategy was used elsewhere and has been highly successful. And so that's something that we're currently looking at. Didn't want to go too far until you guys take a look at this first, because this can be part of that, that piece pushing out. But we're looking at different ways to recruit for them.
Thank you.
One of the things that we've all found, and it's probably in all areas of the district, when you start trying to get information on other districts, unless it's something that they must report to TEA, it's hard sometimes finding that information. We get a lot of information from employees that have come from those departments, so that we have an idea of what they may be doing, but we don't always know for sure what other departments do, but other districts do.
I guess the big question I have is, nowhere in here have we talked about where the money's coming from, I guess. Is that something that's already built into the budget? I mean, I know we adopted a budget.
That's
and
not
now we're asking,
important.
It's not- Ron's working for free for the next few years.
That's a
Villarreal
Mr. Villarreal question.
I mean, well, and I guess to that point, I know we talked during the budget process about, we're already operating somewhat in a shortfall because we're not raising health premiums and that type of thing, which is fantastic. But are we, and we're making that up elsewhere, are we having to do that here, or do we have a contingency that we're able to pull from?
Well, I mean, we would have to bring a budget amendment to you all the next month for 396. But I mean, we're sitting at 3.1 months of operating. 396 is going to make a small dent.
Sure.
So.
Okay. So I guess my question there is, or statement, whatever it is, that we're not necessarily having to cut anywhere else or readjust any of the transportation budget in other spots. We're just going to try to.
No, sir. No.
Okay. Okay. And then the other part of that, or not part of that, but with the recruiting, are we setting up in Pecos, Texas somewhere and just finding all the oil people that aren't finding jobs with the oil and gas companies? I guess on a serious note, are we having problems with people? Are we finding a certain percentage leaving to go to that as well?
There was we did experience that probably 4 or 5 years ago at the beginning of the Eagle Ford.
Yeah.
We experienced a lot of that, but that's a rough life.
Sure.
It's a hard life, and it's not cut out for everybody. So we did have some come back, but we did lose some that, now just because you have a CDL to be a bus driver, you
Doesn't
still
necessarily
have to
translate.
get additional training.
Yeah.
You can't just go drive a truck, but you're partway there. So we did lose some to that, but we're not seeing that like we used to. I don't believe people leaving to go to the oil field.
Sure. Okay. And the last question I had is about the advertising and the recruiting. Do we know about how much a year, or how much we've sort of spent in that regards over the last year? And is that sort of the return on that, or are we seeing?
Jack, do you know how much we've spent?
About $70,000
Okay.
for billboards, newspapers, and materials that we've put out there.
And I know the figure I saw earlier said that we had sort of saved the equivalent of about $400,000. So I'm just wanting to see that we're being vigilant in that.
And Mr. Byer, that's, again, in the spirit of looking at everything with new lenses, right? These are the things that Mr. Clary and Jack and those guys are talking about is, are we getting the return on investment, that ROI, right? Are those things still yielding the results that they once did? And if not, then what do we let go? And then what new do we embrace? Because this shortage on drivers is starting to put a strain at campuses. That's what it's doing, because they're talking about double runs. Well, they're telling you 10 and 12 minutes. If we don't recruit more drivers, we could look at 20 or 30 minutes on a campus. And so it's now starting to impact our schools a lot, potentially in a more negative way.
Yeah.
And so what we're trying to do is, one, we know there are a lot of areas we have to work in. Just one of them is compensation. But it's very hard when you're to people that, their 25-cent pay raise is a lot of money.
No, I mean that.
And
yeah,
when
that's
we're
a-
looking at 1336,
Right.
and then everyone else is quite substantial, we're not even competing. And so what I ask them is, we need to compete. We may not win, but we need to compete.
No, you got to get on at least in the
Right.
get in the stadium.
Correct. I mean,
to
we
be able
have to compete for our drivers.
Yeah.
And so this is the recommendation that they feel like they can go out and truly field a competitive team out
No,
for
I think
drivers.
with the push and the advertising, the recruiting, and getting at least the dollar amount up is
Mhm.
is a good move. But so yeah, that's all I had.
Okay.
Anybody have anything else?
Any questions?
Okay, seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the adjustment to the compensation plan? Is this the right one? Yes, for the 2019-2020 school year.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Byer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Winkley. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, the motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 2, possible action regarding student code of conduct. Mr. Jimenez.
Thank you, President Grona, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. I'd like to invite Dr. Brummett, Executive Director for Student Support Services, back to the podium to address this agenda item.
Good evening again, President Grona, board members, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. As you know, each year, one of your responsibilities as a Board of Trustees under Chapter 37 of Texas Education Code is approving a student code of conduct governing student discipline. Prior to having conversations about potential penalties and consequences, I do think it's important to point out your vision with regard to safe and secure campus environments is probably best borne out by the fact that in any ISD, approximately 7% of students have a discipline referral affiliated with their name in some way. Of that 7%, fewer than 2% ever find themselves in a scenario that's subject to their being placed in a DAEP. So I think that's a real tribute, obviously, to your expectation, to the work of campus administrators whom we saw tonight, certainly teachers and students and families themselves, when upon reflection you realize that 93% of students in this district all day, every day, never have a disciplinary record that appears anywhere. So kudos certainly to staff and students and to parents. Having said that, the student code of conduct that was submitted for your review and approval is largely consistent with last year, but of course it was a legislative year. So there are 3 primary changes in which you'll see the greatest deviation. Number 1, you're familiar from prior years of the legislation limiting suspensions with regard to kinder, first, and second grade students. Those students could only be suspended by law affiliated with offenses involving weapons, drugs and alcohol, or some type of assaultive behavior. That limitation has now been expanded to homeless students regardless of grade level, kindergarten through 12th grade. As a department, we've already been working closely with Mr. Shoesmith and student leadership and well-being to make sure that those contingencies are addressed for students in those situations. Likewise, there is a limitation requiring us to consider, and that verb is deliberately ambiguous, maybe by intent, the implications of a student's homeless status or their participation in CPS conservatorship prior to implementing any disciplinary decision. And again, in the interest of equity and in the interest of those students' well-being, we're already exploring what campus-based alternatives are possibly available to those students. Secondly, as Ms. Huey and Ms. Williams alluded to earlier, there's specific language with regard to threats, specifically where wanding is concerned. Obviously, that was a protocol newly implemented last year as part of your expectation that campuses enjoy a greater degree of safety and security. We've spelled out specifically that wanding is not, in fact, a search, but rather is a blanket screening mechanism that isn't intended to catch, students in any kind of violation or potentially charge them with the commission of any crime, but just to promote a greater degree of safety and security, across a campus. Lastly, and probably most importantly, and probably the subject of many questions from your respective constituencies, would be marijuana with regard to CBD and THC. I'm a little embarrassed to talk to the Board of Trustees about my marijuana expertise tonight. And I got a C in chemistry, but there's an important distinction to be made between CBD, which is the cannabidiol, the inert plant-based hemp byproduct of marijuana, and all its related alleged holistic properties, and THC, which is tetrahydrocannabinol, which is the psychoactive ingredient in marijuana. Okay, even more importantly, there's a distinction between THC and its plant-based form, which the media would tell you in 2019 is fairly innocuous, legalization in various states, our own district attorney opting not to charge adults with possession of that, in various small amounts. THC, however, carries the same penalty under penal code as does methamphetamine. So one of the things that we're really working on in addressing that in the code of conduct with students is a multi-tiered approach. Obviously, THC has grave safety implications for students. The district maintains a hotline notification system, and frequently, all too frequently, will receive notifications that students with no prior medical history or anything to suggest in their history that they have any kind of propensity toward epilepsy or seizures are being transported for medical evaluation for some unknown, cardiac or seizure-like activity. All too frequently, we find that that's related to some ingestion of THC. The potencies of this in its liquid form in some instances are 60 to 70 times greater, than what you might experience in smoking marijuana, ingesting it in its conventional, form. So part of what we've tried to address specifically in the Student Code of Conduct are the ramifications for that, which, with regard to possession of THC, are expulsion. Now, that expulsion is mandatory, which means that there isn't any additional cost incurred by the district in levying that expulsion, but there is a hidden cost in terms of personnel and the requirements on their time and the requirements on yours as a board, because ultimately, as you know, under Chapter 37, all expulsions are also subject to appeal. So, it was important to Dr. Micah that the district be very proactive and take a look at the implications of automatically rendering those expulsions straight off the bat, because we've seen scenarios in other surrounding districts where that wasn't ultimately the ideal. So what we've developed, subject to legal review and depending a lot on the expertise of Chief McCampbell in law enforcement, Mr. Shoesmith in student well-being, is looking at how we're going to address that, not only in terms of Student Code of Conduct and the penalty, but also in terms of how we're going to communicate to families about warning signs of that nature, how we're going to proactively inform them about what may appear to be relatively innocuous is in fact not, and ultimately how we're going to withstand any specific appeal or any specific legal challenge regarding an expulsion for THC by making sure that we have some other standard of preponderance of evidence. Because to Ms. Huey's earlier question about student code of conduct and penal code, it is not in fact CSI or law and order. We have no obligation for proof beyond a reasonable doubt. We do have an obligation under student code of conduct for preponderance of evidence, which is just the fancy $10 law school dropout way of saying we simply have to decide that it's more likely than not that the conduct in question occurred. So as you've looked through student code of conduct, you'll see that we've incorporated language referencing THC specifically. The other reason we felt it was important to have a protocol in place where an administrator would request a campus-based test was, again, legislation has required that we stipulate very specifically in student code of conduct what a peace officer's responsibility is and is not in their service on a campus. And equally importantly, we wanted to make sure that we protected students from any inequitable application of a testing or a search policy. So if you have any specific questions about student code of conduct, beyond those clarifications, obviously we're happy to answer those.
Hi, I have some questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, it's probably pretty good that you're not an expert on this, because we have to question how you got that expertise. But I'm not an expert either, okay? Then in hell or whatever, any of that. But I guess my questions and comments. So THC is the ingredient that's in, say, a marijuana cigarette?
Yes, ma'am. THC,
Okay.
and again, a C in chemistry, okay? THC is literally the psychoactive ingredient in marijuana that causes the high. And the problem with your oils and your cartridges and those kinds of things is ounces upon, exactly, the concentration. Ounces upon ounces of marijuana are distilled down into a very small quantity of oil that's incredibly dangerous and incredibly potent.
Miss Williams, so a marijuana cigarette has about 10% THC. We've seen oils 75 to 90% or 95% THC. So you can see it's extremely potent. So it's like ingesting 10, 12, 13 marijuana cigarettes with a single inhale off of that.
Okay.
That device.
And that's what we might be looking at as far as the code of conduct. A student or someone bringing THC on campus. And my question is just alluding to police officials or public safety officials or the DA's office making this slight change in how they pursue, small amount cases. I think they're going towards making it a small misdemeanor or almost warning or ticket like. So we're not doing anything that's higher than what they're doing, but it's based on the concentration, I guess, right?
And that's a really good question, and let me try to clarify a little better. First of all, possession of THC is classified as a state jail felony, which is a mandatory expulsion under Texas Education Code. To your question, because it's a really good one, and it's one of the things that we're going to have to be very deliberate about in educating the community, we exert no particular influence about what a criminal charge will be. The way the law reads is if something is punishable as a felony, we have certain obligations under Student Code of Conduct. We don't exert any influence over any kind of criminal charge. We just have to impose, obviously, marijuana is against the law, and it's also against the Student Code of Conduct. So therefore, an administrator has to take very specific action where Student Code of Conduct is concerned, and then Chief McCampbell and his officers obviously have to take whatever action they deem appropriate where law enforcement is concerned. So We aren't altering any kind of penalty because those penalties already exist. We're just trying to make sure we impose them in a way that, number one, is as judicious as possible. Number two, prevents unanticipated consequences, and number three, avoids any kind of inequity among campuses in things like, for example, who might choose to test whom, who might not choose to test. Is Campus X going to test everybody versus Campus Y opts to test a select population? So as an assurance for students, regardless of their campus, regardless of their administration, it was important to us to have that language and that protocol in place.
Because there was a situation in another county that one of my coworkers shared with me, and it didn't seem equitable. First of all, the young man brought brownies to school with marijuana in them, and
You had me at brownies, you lost me at marijuana.
and told their friends that they had marijuana in it. Okay, yeah, dumb criminal story, whatever. But the way he was, I guess, arrested or whatever, and grand jury had to hear it. But what was interesting is that there was a small amount actually in the brownie, but the way they looked at it was by the weight of the brownie. So it was, a felony based on the weight of the, and we know, brownies are heavy. They have flour, they have sugar and everything else. So it was at the same level as someone with, I guess, meth or whatever, because they based it on the weight of the brownie. Of course, he shouldn't have brought it to school, shouldn't have had it in the first place, but to have something, based on that.
As a huge nerd, I'm embarrassed by how much I know about drugs in my job. It's kind of an occupational hazard. But one of the things that administrators heard on Wednesday is that there's a distinction. No campus administrator can make a determination about penal code. A campus principal, assistant principal cannot say, I want this written up as this crime under penal code. Likewise, in deference to Chief McCampbell, no officer can say, well, this kid needs to be suspended for X number of days, or this kid needs to be recommended for expulsion. As a protection to those kids, those two things have to peaceably coexist side by side. Now, frequently, do we encounter situations that are both? Yes, ma'am, we do. And the terroristic threat scenario last year was a perfect example. There were scenarios where we placed students in alternative school for our threshold for terroristic threat, so that we were adhering to your expectation for safe and secure campuses, despite the fact that ultimately law enforcement might not choose to charge that kid for whatever reason. We still have the authority, and we still impose that authority to make sure we're sending a very clear message about student safety on campuses.
Thanks so much.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay. Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the 2019-2020 Student Code of Conduct as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Winkley. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Brummett. Item C, Business Services. 1, possible action regarding health and dental insurance premiums. Mr. Villarreal.
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Mike, executive staff, and guests, we bring to you tonight the premiums for health and dental. There is no increase. We spoke about the premiums back in the budget study sessions. No district increase in contributions or premiums to the employee increases.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions about this? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the attached employee premiums and district contributions for the 2020 plan year?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Byer. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Winkley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. Item D, consent. 1, instruction and campus administration. A, memorandum of understanding for the Bexar County Juvenile Justice Academy. 2, business services. A, waiver of penalties and interest. B, 50,000 purchases. C, bid items. 3, operations. A, 2015 Bond Middle School campus facilities. Safety and security, perimeter fencing and gates, schematic design, and bid award approval. B, professional services contracts, construction contracts, and related contract amendments supporting the 2007 and 2015 bond design and construction requirements. 4, minutes from April 2019. 5, end of consent. Do I have a board member wishing to pull an item from consent? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve consent?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Byer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the motion carries. Item 11, reports. A, financial statement review of expenditures, that's been provided for you. B, awarded bid report, that's been provided for you. Item 12, matters from the floor. The trustees welcome comments from members of the public during this time of the meeting. Generally, board members do not respond to public comments during the meeting, although members may request further information or a future agenda item on a matter raised during public comment. As explained fully in the board's written procedures for this time, the matters from the floor portion is a limited public forum. Accordingly, speakers may present on a topic related to district business for up to 3 minutes, but are not permitted to make: 1, personal complaints about an individual staff or board member that should be raised using the district's grievance policies; 2, a personnel action; 3, a student disciplinary matter; 4, a complaint about a particular student; 5, or pending litigation. Any person who persists in speaking on these topics after being directed not to do so will lose the remainder of their time to speak and may lose their privilege of addressing the board at future meetings. We also welcome written comments at any time, either through email at board@neisd.net or by mail, care of the superintendent's office at 8961 Tesoro Drive, 6th floor, San Antonio, Texas 78217. Ms. Huey.
Patsy Esterline.
Good evening, Madam President, board members, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. My name is Patsy Esterline, 6800 Park 10 Boulevard, and I'm president of the Northeast AFT. First, thank you for managing to not raise costs for health insurance. Second, we approve of the student code of conduct you adopted for this school year. However, during the summer meetings that we had with our members and other teachers, an overwhelming concern was student behavior, primarily the lack of consequences for misbehavior when the campus administration was involved. Therefore, our request tonight is that the board and the administration ensure that the enforcement of the student code of conduct is actually followed. Very few teachers we met with felt it was followed by the administration at their school, resulting in a great deal of frustration for the teachers. And too often, teachers felt that the students were actually being rewarded by the administration when sent to the office for misbehaving. And this oftentimes created a reason for a student to misbehave again. As we have often stated, if all students can learn to behave. But the teacher needs to have the administration as a partner in supporting good behavior. Please ensure administrative enforcement of the student code of conduct. Thank you.
Tom Cummins.
Okay. Item 13, discussion and possible action regarding board members' requests for items to be placed on a future agenda and/or requests for reports from the administration. Does anyone need anything? Item 14, adjournment, and the time is 9 o'clock. Thank you, everyone, for being here.